What's up, everyone? It's Zane Donati. I'm back again doing the tight 10. Let's get straight into it. All right. Yesterday, where we left off, we have more confirmation on Ryan Flournoy's role. He's no longer do the Cowboys need a starting player who can take pressure off Lamb. George Pickens and Ryan Flournoy serve that role, and they can each do it from the outside receiver positions. Just kind of further confirmation of Ryan Flournoy playing outside receiver as wide receiver 3. I think Flournoy is really good, really talented. I think that Pickens probably won't be here in 2027, and that Flournoy might ascend into that wide receiver 2 role. Lots of stuff on Jalen Waddle still. There was an article in the Denver Post that talked about who was actually at the welcoming dinner for Jalen Waddle, and one of the main names there was J.K. Dobbins, which shows you like how committed they are to J.K. Dobbins being part of that franchise, and potentially speaks volumes to what his role is. One of the Cardinals beat writers liked my tweet about the fact that Carson Beck's going to probably play late in the season. I think you can expect something like 4 to 8 games of Carson Beck, which is really going to tank the fantasy value of a lot of the Cardinals players. There was a note in the mailbag from Mike Kay from Charlotte that Trevor Etienne's basically going to have the same role as last year. There was an article about Trey Tucker, and it specifically mentioned, if you're wondering who's going to rise within a young receiver unit to complement all-pro tight end Brock Bowers in the passing game, Tucker is the early answer ahead of mandatory minicamp. So he's the wide receiver 1 right now. More information about Finlay of David Blau's run system, which is going to be his own run blocking system. There's a lot of buzz on Jaden Higgins' year 2 ascension. A lot of things about D'Amico Ryans talking highly of him. That he looks stronger, more chiseled, playing faster, making tough catches. And then Higgins kind of pontificated around whether he could play like X, Z, or F. So, rotating around the offense, not just kind of staying stagnant as the Z or X. A slot role would be nice too. Antonio Williams, Dan Quinn confirmed week 1 of OTAs that they're keeping him in the slot. No matter where he's placed, David Blau has been pleased with what the rookie has shown on the field. So currently just a slot-only player, which can always mean up and down usage just based off the fact that they might go 12 personnel at some point. Steelers wide receiver 3 battle. The player that moves the needle in that room is rookie wide receiver Jeremy Bernard, who the organization traded up for. He will be competing with Roman Wilson for that 3rd wide receiver spot. So right now it's Roman Wilson because he's been looking pretty solid, but we know that he hasn't had strong chemistry in the past with Aaron Rodgers. I kind of still expect by end of season that you'll see Jeremy Bernard kind of fill that role, but they might be in 12 personnel more than you'd expect. There was some notes that I posted about Rashid Shaheed. I'm trying to find this. Basically, I've seen a lot of Rashid Shaheed as crushing OTAs, which I think is big because he needs to develop more chemistry with Sam Darnold. Then there was a reporter from the Seahawks who was talking about George Halani, and the team is very high on George Halani. Wilson is not out of the running back competition. The team likes him. I think this might be a committee between all 3 of them to start the season. At the very least, it will be Halani and Jadarian Price with maybe a small smattering of Emmanuel Wilson. Yes, so here's the note on Rashid Shaheed. He was a big-time standout, consistent winner at OTAs. There was a podcast that I listened to that was talking about how Marvin Mims will probably be the wide receiver 3 in terms of production. That doesn't mean he's going to be playing wide receiver 3 all the time. And then they think that the tight ends will be a little bit more involved in the offense this year. They're expecting faster pace of play because of the shortening of the play calls that Davis Webb is going to have, which will get them to the line of scrimmage faster. Sean Payton already had a somewhat fast offense, so it's nice to hear pace of play could be up for that team. They still said Evan Ingram is tight end 1. Definitely Justin Jolie will probably get some time out there. That doesn't mean he's going to get a lot of usage, but it'll be good to see him out on the field, That way, for future seasons, we could probably see something out of him, unless they cut Evan Ingram and then we see him in a even bigger role. RJ Harvey will be the pass catching back. I've talked about that a lot, and Jonah Coleman will definitely see some work this season. Jaden Blue, he's the running back too. There's another one on that soon. Biggest standouts from the wide receiver room for the Dolphins have been Kevin Coleman Jr., who Brett Whitefield has been really high on compared to his actual draft stock, and then Malik Washington as well. And they're kind of competing against each other because Kevin Coleman's kind of more of a slot receiver, and so is Malik Washington. Just going to give myself a quick kudos. Underdog posted something about this Chuba versus Jonathan Brooks thing, and it was 6 days late. So I did have that quote 6 days before they did. Broncos running back room. Coleman will start lower on the running back depth chart, but Peyton has him earmarked as the Broncos' number 3 guy behind J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. Coleman gives the Broncos some true insurance against another unfortunate Dobbins injury. Harvey did his best to fill in that role, but he's not a grinder. And then it goes into the article went into more detail about Jonah Coleman being that kind of grinder. And I think that if Dobbins got injured, it wouldn't be the same role for RJ Harvey. It would be kind of a split between Coleman and him. People have been giving me kudos. I appreciate that. That's been very helpful. It's just me trying to give you guys as much information as possible and then putting my spin on it as well. Grant Cohen from SI talked about the 49ers, and he was basically saying that the 49ers have been holding Brandon Ayuk hostage. He theorized about the fact that he's basically healthy, and they just don't want to give him up to the Commanders. So something's going to give at some point. A lot on Rashad Bateman yesterday. So everything that I keep hearing, and I might breeze past more notes on him, but everything I keep hearing is that he's the wide receiver too, and that they're trying to see, whether or not they need to bring in a veteran, and it's all kind of hinging on him and the young guys. But that right now they just want him to be the wide receiver too. Someone from the Commanders, either an insider or just a super fan, is pretty confident that Brandon Ayuk will be on the team. Some insight on Elijah Arroyo's role. Someone was asking about him. So he helps open up 12 and 13 personnel for the Seahawks because he's kind of that slot tight end. And it was funny because I was listening to Matt Hasselbeck today, and he was kind of talking about this role too. And Terrence Ferguson does the same thing. It's being able to be in different formations, because you can use the tight end as an outside receiver or inside receiver, and utilize them in ways that basically make a formation look like you're in 11 personnel, but you're using a tight end instead of a wide receiver on the field. But they're still expecting him to be the 4th or 5th option in the pass game, which I agree with. Barner's actually really good. So more on Rashid Shaheed being a standout at OTAs, which is good to hear. This one's interesting. So Pearsall missed part of OTAs. He wasn't visibly seen, and there's just more speculation about him having an undisclosed injury. Not what you want to hear with a guy like Ricky Pearsall. He's been missing a lot over the past few seasons. Confirmation that Quentin Johnson is still the wide receiver 2. The Chargers are really high on Trey Harris. That's why they didn't want to get in the A.J. Brown sweepstakes. People were asking about Elijah Surratt and Ravens wide receivers. It looks like the wide receiver 3 role is kind of a battle between Devontae Walker and Elijah Surratt and Jacoby Lane, with Devontae Walker being the leader in the clubhouse there right now. Commanders don't really want Kayshon Boutte. They're probably going to lean into more 12 personnel, and they're still monitoring the Diggs and Ayuk situations. Rams wanted A.J. Brown but couldn't find a trade for Devontae Adams because there was some knee concerns for A.J. Brown as well. So I think that the interesting part is the Devontae Adams part of that. The Eagles knew that they were trading A.J. Brown the whole time, so that's why they drafted Lemon. I think we all know that. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs mutually interested in extension. He'll get at least $50 million a year. I think that's a surprising number to a lot of people, but when you look at the quarterback market, that's kind of the going rate for a decent quarterback. RB2 update, Jaden Blue was a week 1 OTA winner. I think this is big too. They just need to keep seeing consistency out of him to do it again. They really want him to play a nice complementary role. That doesn't mean he's going to be on the field for like 40% of the snaps, but if they could get him to do like 20% of the work, take off some load from some Javonte and just give a different look out there, that would be huge. We know that in college he was a good receiver. I keep hearing a lot about Eric Gall. His OTA usage looks exactly like it did 2 years ago. Practiced 7-on-7 with the ones, has a lot of reps at tight end, and they expect for him to be a big contributor in 2026. That doesn't mean a fantasy contributor, but it does mean that Mike Gesicki is probably not going to have like a massive role. Jameson Williams is focusing on mental aspects of catching the football. And there's a nice clip of Isaac Tesla with this like incredible one-handed catch, which he's just known for his hands basically, and not a great separator, but strong red zone player. Commanders keep saying that they're comfortable with their wide receiver group, but then they're also keeping an eye on the market. We've talked about that. Caleb Johnson's not really going to he might be a game day inactive just because he doesn't really contribute on special teams. Robert Saleh has been talking up Tony Pollard. He calls him a hell of a player, talks about his pad level hand placement, and there's a lot of different reasons why Pollard is so successful in his eyes. Some big nuggets from the ESPN article. Matthew Golden's been Jordan Love's favorite target in OTAs so far. Matt LaFleur seen a big step in him. Patrick Mahomes might see more work in minicamp, could do some 11-on-11 stuff if things go well. Hurts is going to go under center. They're going to force him to throw it over the middle of the field. We'll see how that goes. Ravens might trade for a center. That's good. They need a better offensive line. They lost Tyler Linderbaum. Texans offense wasn't explosive yet in OTAs. They're going against their defense, so that's pretty obvious. Liam Cohen and the Jaguars want to use multiple formations with multiple tight ends. That's big because that's taking off one of Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington, or BTJ. Cousins is going to be the wide receiver, quarterback 1 to start the season, and Torrey Horton should be practicing soon. Further confirmation that the Raiders are going to start Kirk Cousins. Daniel Jones is doing 7-on-7. He's aiming to play week 1. Mahomes is doing 7-on-7, aiming to play week 1 also. Sorsby is not going to be playing in the NFL this year, which is big for anybody that's looking to have one of those like low-tier quarterbacks on their best ball teams or any other league that you're looking at. The Sean Mannion scheme is going to have a lot of motion and under center, pre-snap motion and under center, 2 things that are pretty strong for like EPA per play. Justice Hill is RB2 for the Ravens. Rasheen Ali is RB3. Adam Randall will make the 53-man roster. There's a competition between Rasheen Ali and Adam Randall. There's competition for wide receiver 3. Bateman will be wide receiver 2. They could add another veteran. We talked about that. Devontae Walker is wide receiver 3 favorite. And the coaches have seen really strong progress from Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt. Tyler Warren, a lot on him. Basically, he looks like an absolute stud. They're calling him an offensive weapon. They also talk about him taking steps as a route runner, that he could be the primary receiving option. A lot of it probably hinges on Josh Downs' role. So Alec Pierce will get the most chances outside. Josh Downs is going to get most of his chances out of the slot. I don't know if the writer of this article meant that specifically, but the fact that he said the slot for Josh Downs kind of makes me a little bit worried about whether he's going to play outside, and you'll see why in a couple seconds. Kansas City is focused on wide receiver development. We've talked about that in previous sessions, so they're not really looking to add anybody right now. Ashton Dulin was playing outside receiver, and he's been the wide receiver 3 for them in OTAs, which I'm not sure if that means that Josh Downs would play the slot or what would end up happening there. It sounds like he's going to still be a slot receiver, but it would be weird if they put Ashton Dulin out there. But when I looked at the stats from last year, there was a game I think Pittman or Pierce missed, and they played a different wide receiver. I think it was Anthony Gold, or I can't remember the exact name. They played him at outside instead of Josh Downs. So that's That is my biggest concern. Browns rookie receivers, there's a couple articles on this that happened in a row, but basically Concepcion and Boston are getting time with the starters, and they're going to get more time with the starters. Eric Bieniemy is focusing on small details at OTAs with the QBs, running backs, wide receivers, and O-line. So he's just kind of chewing people out for not doing things correctly, which is what I think a good coach does. Drew Petzing had a nice quote on Isaac Tesla, just saying that he's consistent. He uses his body to his advantage to catch the football, and we've seen that plenty. Marshawn Lloyd is going to potentially be the supplement to Josh Jacobs as long as he can stay healthy. More on the Concepcion in Boston. Basically, both of them are doing well. Boston seems to have a little bit of an advantage there right now. And they're both working in with the ones and probably going to get more practice time with the ones. People were asking about Harold Fannin. He's been at OTAs, but he's not participating. The Browns are counting on a big year from Fannin and Judkins, and they're both considered long-term puzzle pieces for them. This is just more confirmation on the Jonathan Brooks role that Cameron Wolfe pretty much keeps talking about and says, like, Jonathan Brooks could be the featured back over Chuba Hubbard. Steelers running back coach on Warren and on Jalen Warren and Rico Dowdle. They talked about how they're basically interchangeable and they want a fresh back on the field at all times. It kind of sounds like it'll be a split at the moment. The Titans are talking a little bit more about doing 12 personnel than most people are realizing, which would take off one of Tate, Ridley, or Wan'Dale Robinson. Who knows who that's going to be? I would guess that it's probably Ridley, but I don't know. And a lot of that comes back to the signing of Daniel Bellinger, who's a nice blocker that the coach really likes. Kevin Coleman keeps generating some buzz. He's in competition with Malik Washington, or he could get an outside receiver role, but he's more of a slot. Kevin Stefanski was drooling over Drake London today in his press conference. I think we all expect big things from Drake London. He's going to be the focal point of the offense. The Chiefs running back 2 right now is Amari DeMarcado. Ashton Doolin is the current wide receiver 3 for the Colts. DJ Giddens is trying to fend off Seth McGowan for RB2 and for Indy right now. Justin Jefferson sounds way more happy with Kyler Murray. Cam Skattebo was on the field today. We could see in this clip here, if you're watching live or if you're going to watch this later, that he was taking handoffs. And then there's another clip of him actually doing a cut that he ends up doing here, which is good to see. And Jeff Mueller, DPT, kind of commented on the fact that, like, hey, he's in a good spot. Don't worry about him. Ladd missed practice. Omarion Hampton was back at practice. Carnell Tate keeps doing amazing things at Titans OTAs, catching deep balls, things that we saw him do in college. It sounds like that's what he's doing against their defense right now. I talked about this a little bit. I want to bring it up. So BTJ last year, his separation dropped across the board across all of these like top 7 routes. And then these last 2, he actually performed a little bit better. Like, he was really good at the out route last year. But I think the big thing is that his role with and without Jacoby Myers, with Jacoby Myers, he had 30% of his routes go be at a depth of 20 or more yards. And then in 2024, it was like 17%. So they basically pushed him into this like deeper threat role, which is, in my opinion, more like volatile. And I do think that based off of all the reporting that I've seen, that he is going to continue being in that deep threat role. That doesn't mean things won't change, but that's kind of how they see him right now. The Jaguars see Tanner Koziol at being the tight end 3 right now, behind Brenton Strange and Nate Boericker. I said that wrong. And then the last one that I have here is on Tet McMillan, and just confirmation that he was out due to foot soreness and he didn't really return back to OTAs. They might see him at minicamp, but I do want to throw caution to the wind that he's had feet issues in the past, and I'm just not sure which foot this is or anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what was going on there. Malachi Fields is getting first-team reps. Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton have been sidelined, so it's good to see that the rookie is getting out there and getting practice reps with Jackson Dart right now. And that's it for today. Thank you, guys.